Dominic Fitzroy McFarlane, also known as Nick, father, Mr. McFarlane and teacher of Windward Carriacou, a retired teacher and registration officer, passed away on Thursday, 8th December 2022, at the age of 67. He was the son of Monica McFarlane, wife Gabriella McFarlane, father of Shannon Clement, Chanel Landor and Kyle McFarlane, all in Canada, Nikito McFarlane in Carriacou, and Atike McFarlane in the USA. Grandfather of Promise and Jonathan Clement, and Zaire McFarlane in Canada, and Zayden in Carriacou. Sisters Merle James, Morella Whitmore and Joycelyn Patras in the USA, Pamela Alec in the UK, Genevieve Callender in St. Lucia, and Irva Martineau in Carriacou, and Peter Maturin in Trinidad. Brother-in-law of Joan Camijon, Agatha McFarlane and Chanel Kumansing David in the USA, Michael James, Reginald Whitmore, Joseph, Gerard, Terence, Ronald and Kenneth McLawrence, all in the USA, Roland Alec in the UK, Boniface McLawrence, Junior Martineau and Albert Patras in Carriacou. Father-in-law of Naomi Clement and Sabrina McFarlane in Canada, and Kizzy McFarlane in Carriacou, and Davidson Landor in Grenada. Nephew of Agatha Jordan, Cynthia McLawrence, Beulah Christopher, Lorna Williams and Gregory Menz. Uncle-in-law of Lenny Christopher, Camilla Lang and Kathleen Compton. Uncle of 15 including Kerry James, Khalid McFarlane, Michelle Callender and Shakira Martineau. Other relatives and friends including the McFarlane, McLawrence, Compton, Davidson, Martineau, MacDonald, Roberts, Legard, Cox and Alexander families, Bridget Rao, Alfred McLawrence, Ronald Stewart, Doreen McFarlane, Wilma McWilkin, Edgar Romaine, Godfrey Roberts, Costnell Fleury, Cyril Compton, Pearl St. Hilaire, David Mills, Henry Steele, John Dumont, Reginald Hamar, Frank Patris, Minroy Boatswain, Wendy Williams, and friends and neighbours of Windward Carriacou and surrounding areas too numerous to mention. The funeral of the late Dominic Fitzroy McFarlane, also known as Nick, father, Mr. McFarlane and teacher, a retired teacher and registration officer of Windward Carriacou, will take place on Wednesday, January 4th at 1 p.m. Funeral service will be held at the St. Peter's and Paul Roman Catholic Church, Windward Carriacou, and entombment will be at the Lapel Cemetery, Petit Coronage, Carriacou. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home. Anthony Stephen Joseph, also known as Zicky and Bull of Florida St. John, passed away on Monday, December 12, 2022, at the age of 61. He was the brother of Genevia Joseph, also known as Jennifer and Gerlo, and Alfred, also known as Cadoon in Grenada, and George in Trinidad. Uncle of Rondell Campbell and Alva Punka Charles in the USA, and Philip in Trinidad. Uncle-in-law of Carleen Campbell. Grand-uncle of Cameron, Riel and Jaden Campbell. Many other relatives and friends including Louis Alphonse and family, Clarice Bernard, the Simpson family, the Durant family in Barbados and Trinidad, Laura Joseph and family, Mildred George and family, Evelyn Joseph and family, Desmond and Dennis Campbell, Margaret Pradam, the management and staff of Purcell's Estate, Plaisance, and friends and neighbours of Florida and surrounding areas. The funeral of the late Anthony Stephen Joseph, also known as Zicky and Bull of Florida St. John, will take place on Thursday, January 5th at 2 p.m. Funeral service will be held at the Grove Anglican Church, and interment will be at the Douglaston Cemetery. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home. Agatha Elizabeth Andrews Thomas, also known as Kate of Caliste St. George, passed away on Monday, December 5th, 2022, at the age of 67. She was the wife of Fitzroy Magoo Thomas, mother of Gary, Jeremy, Blondell, and Kimon Andrews, stepmother of Roy Stanislaus in Trinidad, sister of Gabriel Strauss, David and Kevin Andrews, Joan McQueen in Grenada, and Winifred Nelson in the UK, grandmother of 18 including Nichelle Vespri, Jody Douglas, Tamia Andrew, and Kaylee Simon, great-grandmother of Avery and Brielle. Aunt of many in Grenada, the USA and the UK, including Germaine Harry and Sheldon Andrews. Sister-in-law of Hilary, Gwen Leanne, Wendy and Agnes Andrews, Angela Thomas, Janice Perrott, Carol Ann Thomas Smith, and Mary Thomas Mitchell. Augustus, Trevor and David Thomas. Daughter-in-law of Loris Dabrio. Mother-in-law of Sabrina and Carol Andrews. Many other relatives and close friends, including Mary Mark, Jacqueline, Veronica Joseph, Alvin Doyle, June Alexander, Shireen Lewis, the Andrews, Thornhill, Duncan, St. Louis, Marshall, Roberts, Bell, Francis, McIntyre, Downs, Clark and Alexander families of Caliste and Grand Anse, the parish priest and members of the Lady of Mount Carmel Choir and the Blessed Sacrament Church Choir, and parishioners of Caliste and Grand Anse RC Church, and friends and neighbours of Caliste and surrounding areas. The funeral of the late Agatha Elizabeth Andrews Thomas, also known as Kate, of Caliste St. George, will take place on Thursday, January 5th at 1 p.m. Funeral service will be held at the Blessed Sacrament Church Grand Anse, and interment will be at the Grand Anse Cemetery. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home. Kimberly Antonia Bell, also known as Kim, of Woburn St. George, died on Wednesday, December 7th, 2022, at the age of 39. She was the daughter of Margaret Bell and Kenneth Bernard, mother of Kamal Bell, sister of Paula, Sean, Antonio Bell, Avalon, Jamal and Janelle Bernard, Morndell, Troy Sandiford, and Nkomo Nash, niece of Elizabeth Gray, Thomas and Clara Bell, Yvonne and David Bartholomew, Bernadette Nimrod, Brenda, Mona, Maria and Raymond Bell, Henry, Dunstan, Raymond, Dean, Dominic Bernard, Nursling, Sonia and Alice Bernard, aunt of William, Brian, Brianna Bell, Shaquana Charles, Aidan Coutain, Sky Bell, Kylie and McHarry, Denroy, Alex, AJ and Caden, cousin of James, Nina, Hilary, Larry, Jillian and many more. Special friend of Miss Jennifer Nash, Miriam Joseph, Kimberlyn Gibbs, Rachel Roberts, Andiana Panchu, and Sonia Joseph. Other relatives and friends including the Bell family of Grand Anse, Belmont and West Hall, the Keto family of Woburn and Belmont, the Bartholomew family of Woodlands, the Sam family of Woburn, the Richards family of Woburn, and friends and relatives of Woburn and Woodlands, the Mason family of Walker, St. Andrew, and friends and former co-workers of Sandals, Grenada and Losaurus. The funeral of the late Kimberly Antonia Bell, also known as Kim, of Woburn St. George, will take place on Friday, January 6, 2023 at 2 p.m. Funeral service will be held at the Springs Open Bible Church, and interment will be at the Family Cemetery, Woburn. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Bailey's Funeral Home. John Baptiste Jones of Rosehill, who resided at Madeira St. Patrick and in London, England, passed away on Friday, 2nd December 2022, at the age of 82. He was the husband of Louise Jones, also known as Catherine George, father of 4 in London and in the USA, grandfather of 7 in London and in the USA, great-grandfather of 17 in London and in the US, brother of Rodina, Castle and Waltius, brother-in-law of O'Donnell, also known as Odie, and Harrison Roberts, uncle of many other relatives and friends including the Jones and Charles families of Rosehill and in London, the George and Roberts families of Grand Mall and in London, and friends and neighbours of Rosehill, Madeira and in London, England. The funeral of the late John Baptiste Jones of Rosehill, who resided at Madeira St. Patrick and in London, England, will take place on Friday, January 6th at 1 p.m. Funeral service will be held at the St. Patrick's Catholic Church, Sauters, and entombment will be at the Marley Cemetery. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home. Marilyn Joseph, also known as Marrow, and Miss Joseph, of La Tante St. David, passed away on Monday, 26th December 2022, at the age of 71. The funeral arrangements for the late Marilyn Joseph, also known as Marrow, and Miss Joseph of Laton St. David will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lakwa Brothers Funeral Home. Daphne Francis, also known as Miss D of White Gun St. George, passed away on Monday 26th December 2022 at the age of 76. The funeral arrangements for the late Daphne Francis, also known as Miss D, of White Gun St. George, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lakwa Brothers Funeral Home. Willard Timothy Smith, also known as Iron Man of Bylands, who resided at Sab St. Andrew, passed away on Saturday, December 24th, 2022, at the age of 51. The funeral arrangements for the late Willard Timothy Smith, also known as Iron Man of Bylands, who resided at Sab St. Andrew, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lakwa Brothers Funeral Home. John Francis Thomas, also known as Skipper of Crowshoe St. Andrew, passed away on Monday 19th December 2022 at the age of 63. The funeral arrangements for the late John Francis Thomas, also known as Skipper of Crowshoe St. Andrew, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lakwa Brothers Funeral Home. Sarah Sandy, also known as Dufraid of Concord St. John, passed away on Saturday 17th December 2022 at the age of 91. The funeral arrangements for the late Sarah Sandy, also known as Dufraid of Concord St. John, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lakwa Brothers Funeral Home. Joan Teresa Joseph, also known as Mommy Joan or Mother, of Shantymel St. Patrick, who resided at Middle River Grove Estate, St. John, passed away on Friday 16th December 2022 at the age of 71. The funeral arrangements for the late Joan Teresa Joseph, also known as Mommy Joan or Mother, of Shantymel St. Patrick, who resided at Middle River Grove Estate, St. John, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Bailey's Funeral Home.
The management and staff of MTV extend deepest condolences to those of you whose loved ones have passed on. Thank you for watching.
I am Godwill James, an MD and a member of Gateway Assembly. Medically, death is regarded as an end or a cessation of life. Different groups view death in different perspectives. While some regard death as a continuation of life, others view it as an infeeble form of life. As a Christian, we may want to view death as a separation of the soul from the body. So, whichever way one may view death, I want to say that may the gentle soul of the faithful departed rest in the bosom of the Lord. Amen. I am Godwill James, an MD and a member of Gateway Assembly. Medically, death is regarded as an end or a cessation of life. Various groups have different perspectives about death. While some view death as an infeeble form of life, others also regard it as a continuation of life. As a Christian, death is largely regarded as a separation of the soul from the body. So, whichever way one may want to view death, I want to say that may the gentle soul of the departed rest in peace in the bosom of the Lord. Amen.